This is episode number 13 of Store and Forward, a podcast about the past and future of amateur radio. I am Kay Savitz, K6KJN. I am the curator of the Digital Library of Amateur Radio and Communications, a free service of the Internet Archive, which is a free online ham radio library. And I am here with my partner in crime, Steve. Say hello, Steve.
I'm Steve Stroh, NHGNJ, and I am the editor of the Zero Retries newsletter, which is available at www.zeroretries.org. And it is a free newsletter, free as in beer. Um, and we talk about all things advanced amateur radio, thus the forward part of Store and Forward.
I gotta say, your newsletter comes reliably every Friday, and it is a pleasant ending to my week to get to read it. And uh, it is free. It comes a lot more reliably than free beer actually comes to my into my life. So I would say it's more free than beer.
Okay, thank you. I'll take it.
Um, so you just got back from Hamvention, the big annual ham radio show. My my lovely wife was just like, "What was the name of that show again?" I said, "Hamvention." She said, "That's a silly name." I said, "Well, it's been a silly name for like 40 years or 50 or something like that.
Yep.
Continues to be a silly name." How was it? Tell me everything.
Hamvention is a total immersion in amateur radio. And one of the things I've gotten complimented on is my suggestion that whenever you sit down to rest your feet, and you will be doing that very regularly, it's a big show at a county fairgrounds, Greene County Fairgrounds in Xenia. And if you're looking that up, it's spelled Xenia, Ohio. Formerly it was the Hamvention was formerly at a big complex called Hera Arena in Dayton, Ohio. So it's often still called the Dayton Hamvention, but it's no longer actually held in Dayton. Um, it's big. There are a total of five main buildings, fairground buildings, packed solid with exhibitors and attendees. And the, I suggest that when you sit down, you strike up a random conversation with the person next to you and say, what part of ham radio are you into? Because it's the only place in the world. Well, there's two other big conferences like this internationally, but it's the only place in the world where you're guaranteed to have an interesting conversation about ham radio that you wouldn't otherwise have. And you hear some amazing things. And you get perspectives, and it's the one place where you don't feel like a fish out of water. It's like, well, I'm into ham radio. Do you know what that is? And you never have those conversations at Hamvention.
Right.
So, and it's a bit of a guilty pleasure. The only food available is fair food, exorbitantly priced fair food. So you're not going to lose any weight. Um, and but there's plenty to but there's always interesting things. So the most interesting thing I saw at the whole thing was an amazing new radio from HF radio from Flex Radio called the Aurora, Aurora. And what Flex did was combine a technology called LD MOS for which is a new type of semiconductor technology for high power radio communications. It's used in everything from broadcasting to two-way radio. But Flex Radio happened to integrate it into a unit that is the size of a typical HF radio, roughly 6 inches tall, maybe a foot wide by a foot and a half deep, maybe a foot deep. All in that single cabinet was the radio itself, a 500-watt amplifier, the power supply, and the antenna tuner. So you attach any random antenna to the back of this thing, it will match it. And if it's possible to pump out 500 up to 500 watts into that antenna through the matching network, no sweat. You dial and go.
That
And
500 watts is really unusual, right? Because every radio I've ever heard of, an HF rig, is going to be 100 watts, right? If you want more than
I
that, you're going to need a
yes, you have an
amplifier.
external. Well, you have the assemblage of four different units. You have an external power supply typically, or maybe sometimes it's built in. But then you always have an external amplifier,
Sure.
and you have an antenna tuner because you don't want your expensive antenna amplifier trying to transmit into a mismatched load and going poof. So antenna tuner is critical, and getting all these things talking reliably together and working reliably together is critical. And so putting it all in one box is an amazing. And then I put my hand on it. I could barely tell that it was operating. It was at best lukewarm. And then it was transmitting. They turned it on in the morning at 8 o'clock. They put they set it up to transmit into a dummy load. They literally put a brick on a Morse code key and let it go. And the dummy load was warm, but the box itself was cool. And the most amazing thing about it, it was plugged into a standard 115 volt, 15 amp outlet, not a 220 circuit, not a 20 amp, 120 volt circuit, standard household 120 volt, 15 amp circuit. And it was loafing along. It was pulling about 7.5 amps out of that circuit. So it's an amazing breakthrough in power efficiency. I mentioned that the same way I talk, I'm in awe about how Apple is doing the same sorts of high compute per watt of electrical energy with their M series processors and now the M4. So this is a new era, and Flex Radio got there first. And again, LD Moss is not new in amateur radio, but putting it all together in an integrated package was really impressive. And it being Flex, it's a software defined radio, entirely software. It comes in a black box version or has a standard faceplate. And the black box version, and it can be operated remotely, just like all Flex radios. So it was just a really impressive demonstration, and it kind of took all the air out of the other guys at the show. I mean, everybody else was showing off their latest and greatest HF radios, and this thing isn't cheap. But I think the price was around $6,000. But all the other big radios out from ICOM and Yaesu and Kenwood, they have you know similar price points, but nothing this integrated and nothing this clean. So I kudos to them, and 500 watts I think is a really good sweet spot. It's now you don't it's not 500 watts all the time. You don't have
Sure.
to use the 500 watts. You can dial it down if you
Of,
need,
I,
if you
I
don't
would hope
need it.
so. Right.
But it's there. But it's there if you want it, and it's built in. You not a agonizing decision about should I go with a kilowatt amp, etc. So it was really cool. So that was the big one. And let's see. Sorry, dialing down my notes. So I wrote an article in Zero Retries about what I saw from the Zero Retries interesting perspective. And the second item I had was a really impressive demonstration of FreeDV, which is a digital voice mode for amateur radio HF. And it's been in active development, and it just keeps getting better and better. And recently, they've been doing what's called RODI, radio auto encoder. And it's machine, instead of having a static coder decoder for digital voice, they are employing machine learning to basically do it on they're figuring out how to do a codec on the fly, and it's adapting to each individual voice. And one of the most important things is, as I understand it, is because it's machine learning, it's agnostic about language. So if you want to transmit in Japanese, which a typical, code vocoder has problems with, no sweat with this. Now, the big breakthrough, which really put it on the map for me, was that currently FreeDV Rade is running on Windows PCs, typically, with horribly capable or amazingly capable processors, et cetera, and a full blown 64-bit operating system. Well, he was running the demonstration at Hamvention on a Raspberry Pi 5. Now you can get them up to like, I forget, six, 32, maybe even, I don't remember how big you can get how much big the RAM you can get on a Raspberry Pi 5, but it's like at least 32. I don't know what size he was using, but he was using a Raspberry 5, which is an appliance. You
Right. Yeah.
know, at most it's going to cost you $200.
Yeah.
So instead of tying up a Windows PC just to do digital voice, you're doing this all on a Raspberry Pi 5, which that crossed a major threshold for me. And it's, as they say about AI, this is the worst it's ever going to be. It's just going to keep getting better, and we'll have better and better processors. We're going to get a Raspberry Pi 6. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get a Raspberry Pi 03. Which will have more RAM and more processor power. So this is exactly the right way to go. Is waste bits, as they used to say, to throw compute power at the problem because it's only going to get cheaper.
Yeah.
So that was my number 2 on my list. Number 3 was that was I still have high hopes, and everybody, I heard enough encouraging things to mention this, but Kenwood is promising their TMD750A mobile radio, which the big feature is that it's tri-band, and it's going to do 144, 222, and 440 megahertz all in one unit. The one of the big reveals was that it will do full duplex on 144 and 440.
Really?
So
Neat.
yeah, so you can use it for satellite, some of the FM satellites, which
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people like. They promise 50 watts output on 144 and 440. The 220 section is fluid, shall we say? They're not. The Japanese engineers are not talking to the American sales force much about the 220 section yet. And there's lots of connectivity. There's an SD card slot for, at minimum, recording audio on the unit. There's USB-C on both the radio unit and the head unit. They finally revealed that there will be a way to bypass the internal. Oh, it's got an internal TNC, which, in keeping with the previous way they do things, it'll be 1200 and 9600. But they also revealed that there will be a data port, which is actually unfiltered audio out the back. So you can bypass the TNC if you want to, which works for me.
Roll it yourself, roll one yourself. Yeah, nice.
Well, just like a lot of people are using VARA FM, which requires unfiltered for highest performance at 25 kilobits a second, you need unfiltered access to the radio, bypassing the discriminator section and the
Is
preemphasis and
that is
de-emphasis.
that the flat audio that you're always talking about?
Right. They people call it the data port because that's where you hook up a modem. But the thing is, it's not that. The electrical signals are analog audio, not data. So
Yeah.
it's horribly misnumbered. It's sometimes called the 9600 port. It's that whole thing is a mess. But if you know what you're looking for, it works. So good on them that they put that in there. Most radios don't have it. So they're still promising it for 2025 sometime. So the next big show, if memory serves, is Ham Radio in Friedrichshafen, Germany in June. And then there's Ham Fair in Tokyo, which is, I think, in August. So, well, they're going to dribble out details until they get it done. And one of the more interesting bits was they're calling that it does have wireless LAN
Mm-hmm.
and Bluetooth capability. So apparently they were willing to certify it and pay the fee for being able to say Bluetooth, but they apparently haven't done either certification or payment to call it Wi-Fi. So they call it wireless LAN. So, and the unit will do some tricks like, for example, if you want to participate in a internet talk group, you can connect your radio to the internet talk group and use it over the internet without actually transmitting RF. So I can see applications for that
Hmm.
being useful. It'll do all kinds of tricks. Apparently, the software is very much in flux. The sales guys had to speak very slowly and deliberately to keep themselves on, track with not saying too much. It's not. It's certainly not certified or type accepted at the FCC, so they can't say prices, delivery, etc. So that's got it. But it's a sexy looking one. And as much as I chafe at them, still putting a standard TNC in it, I guess that's probably a checkbox item for a lot of people. I would much rather have it user defined, but at least they put the port in there. So I'm sure there's going to be one in my future eventually. But and it is a sexy looking unit. And a lot of people really wanted one unit that does all three bands in their for their car.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that a lot of people like that. Um, but probably to me a close tie for third place at Hamvention was a project that I learned about completely accidentally, just having a random conversation with an old friend, John Ackerman, N8UR. He created a project called TimeBot. And there is a group of folks who are even more fanatical than your most rabid amateur radio operator called Time Nuts. And they are, for some reason, I haven't quite figured this out, and I certainly don't possess this bug. Fortunately, I don't need more hobbies, but they are into precision timekeeping. They know certainly to the millisecond, probably to the microsecond, maybe even the nanosecond, what time it is.
Mhm.
And they have the equipment and they have the expertise and they have the background knowledge of precision timekeeping. And now it's useful for a lot of different things. Um, Difference of time of arrival. You can tell what direction a signal is coming from with various antennas at the different times of arrival if you have a stable enough or and a precision enough time base. So the time nuts community has been going for more than 30 years, and they have extensive mailing lists and publications, etc. And one guy, John Hackerman, N8UR, decided to bring all this stuff together, and he lashed up a AI system, and I don't remember the details, but it's called uh, TimeBot. He calls it TimeBot. It's running in his base. It's running on a server in his basement, literally.
Mhm.
I call it a virtual time nut because you can basically ask it open-ended questions about how to get started. I've got this. How does this work? Or what are the mods for an XYZ, time base, rubidium time standard, etc. It's all in there. I mean, every conceivable question has been asked during the past 30 years, and it's all in there now. And the best part about TimeBot is I asked John, okay, cool. Did you hard code it to TimeBot, or is it the framework, able to be ported to other areas of expertise such as packet radio? Because I knew John from the early Tapper days when we were all doing packet radio networking. John said, absolutely, but I won't be the one to do it, which is completely fair. He's a hardcore time nut now, and that's where he spends all of his time. So we find all that AI stuff that I kept hypothesizing about, or that is perfect fodder, for collecting in DLARC, is now it's real. So
Someone
I
was
don't know
asking
that.
me at the when I gave a talk about DLARC at a radio group, and somebody asked me, are you going to put this into an AI so that we can, search the information? I'm just like, oh, it can be done. I'm not going to be the one to do that. I'm collecting the information, but yeah, it's the same sort of thing. You could take all the packet radio stuff, you could feed it into into a AI LLM whatever system and have access to everything. My personal concern with a system like this is I would want it to be able to tell me the information, but also provide the source. Tell me the, where did you, why do you think this? Tell me, show me the email from 40 years ago where somebody mentioned this or the newsletter or whatever, rather than just spewing data that's probably accurate, but could be questionable.
One of the reasons I like this is that the knowledge base will be bounded. It's not going to be accessing random stuff on the internet. So it's going to have a lot of it's going to be pulling from authoritative information,
Yeah.
not random, crap. Um,
Someone's
Garbage in, garbage out.
someone's Reddit post or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, um, so I got a little playful in zero retries, and I said, well, if I ever have enough time, if I said initially, if I ever have enough, and then I crossed it out and said, allocate enough time, I would love to go back through 73 and extract all of the Never Say Die editorials from the late and very great Wayne Green, W2NSD. Um, the guy is just an absolute fount of wisdom.
A virtual
And
Wayne Green would just be an absolutely insane system, and I don't know. I don't know
it's
if
just
that's a good
crazy enough to
idea.
be fun. It would be crazy enough to have a fun. It would be so fun to have it. What does Wayne Green think about, whatever, and what do you think Wayne Green would think? And, oh, back in, and find some, I mean, because he ran the gamut from, amateur radio to, I mean, he was the founder of Byte magazine.
Yeah.
He created Byte magazine. Didn't keep it for long, but he founded it,
Hmm.
and he saw the potential, but he never saw the internet coming. At the very end, Wayne was still piddling along with an AOL email address. So yeah, so that would be fun. But it's now here. The concept has been proven, and I have really got to get my butt in gear and get zero retries poured into my preferred platform. It looks like is going to be perfect is Google's Notebook LM.
Hmm.
So it was designed exactly for use cases like mine. So I don't know about the more different data types of like packet radio, but John said absolutely his framework would work perfectly for that. Let's see a few other interesting bits. Our friends at Amateur Radio Digital Communications were
Hmm.
well represented at Hamvention. They were giving away cool T-shirts. I put it away in my stack, and I should have shown it. But anyway, they are they now are prioritizing research and development, space communications, and scholarships. Those are their three primary areas of interest, and they are, that helps a lot in thinking about um, ARDC. And ARDC is chugging right along on making their 44 net IPv4 address allocation of 12 million addresses for amateur radio more accessible with a virtual private network service that they're going to debut hopefully later in this year. But I was granted beta access, so I'm jazzed. But the big news, the biggest news was at Hamvention. I mean, to me, the biggest and best announcement was that we debuted working hardware for the IP400 network project.
Hmm.
And thanks to Jim McLaughlin, case I6ZUM, I believe is his call sign. Shame on me for not recording that. Um, he was exhibiting the MMDVM project, multi-mode digital voice modem, and some advanced work they're doing. He showed off some prototypes and talked a lot about what they're doing. Also funded by an ARDC grant, and he graciously shared the table with IP400. Excuse me. And the IP400 hardware was working. It was a little radio board married to a. Of course, I don't have it. Well, of course, this is supposed to be an audio podcast. So anyway, it's a little radio board that attaches to a Raspberry Pi Zero, and it was working. It did everything that we said it was going to do. It's beaconing out its capabilities to any similar unit that will hear. It was operating at 100 kilobits a second, wicked fast response. There was a chat utility that basically demoed. There were, things we could have done better. I was a first time exhibitor for such a thing, and I wasn't anywhere near as prepared. Everything I had was gone. Everything, my material that I brought was all gone within, the first day of Friday. So lesson learned, meter it out. um, had several developers stop by and really take a good hard look at it. And they said, this is cool. Now that you guys have actually shipped real hardware, not the prototype hardware that was a radio development kit, um, they were, they believe now. So he said that Martin PE6VH said that there was a definite uptick in developer interest after Hamvention. Um, so we're sticking to the summer 2025 for shipping production units. It's what we showed was not a production unit. It was an early it was a pre-production unit. That's what he's calling it. So, and it works. So those will be joined by a third unit in my shop here at NAG&J Labs this summer. That's going to be the primary thing, but I hope I cram other interesting projects into this beautiful summer. And we're having amazing spring weather for Western Washington. We're we're drier than wetter, which is the reverse of the usual pattern. So I'll have plenty of time with the doors wide open at NAG&J Labs. And with that, let's see. Oh, and we're off. It's a compressed week because we are off to the CPAC conference here on Thursday down in Seaside, Oregon.
Yeah.
I'm giving a talk about amateur radio technological innovation. Sorry, a seminar. And yeah, all six of us, are going to be sitting there, talking. I'll be talking to the other six because they booked me against the ARRL forum, which is held in the biggest room in the place, and it has overflow crowd, so I don't expect a big crowd for me. Yeah, they explicitly said that I was counter programming to the ARRL seminar. So and then we settle. Yeah, by early June we settle back in for a long, relaxing summer, except for the fact that we're going to be doing a conference, the Zero Retries Digital Conference, September 13th. And then Tina and I are helping out the GNU Radio Conference at the same venue in Everett, Washington, September 8th through the 12th. And we're very busy with planning that. And I can't say a name, but Tina probably scored a fantastic keynote speaker that has the GNU radio folks wowed. The details are yet to be nailed down. We're jazzed that, I wish I'm on the cusp of saying it and I can't.
I'd say it. I can't say it yet. Tina would be
Nope,
mad.
can't say it.
We can't have
Yes,
Tina
she would.
mad at you.
Nope. So that's my wrap up. So
Great. That sounds like an exciting adventure to Hamvention, and you've only have a couple days to recuperate before you're on to the next one. So,
yep.
uh,
So
yeah,
how's it going with you?
good. I'm continuing work on the on DLARC 2.0, I guess. um, and I'm at this point where I've been doing stuff, but can't I don't have everything to show yet. So, but exciting things are happening. I've been doing a lot of things with packet radio history. We have added a couple hundred documents related to the history of of packet radio. Uh, so far, a lot of the stuff has come from government systems, and I have been sending out feel. You sent me something. Well, actually, a couple people sent me something from a mailing list about people asking about something called Packet Radio Temporary Notes, PRTNs, which are were documents published in the mostly in the 70s and 80s uh, about packet radio. People figuring out what packet radio, what it could be, what it could do, how it would work. And these documents were published by a variety of universities, and some were published by ARPA, and some were published by other government entities, and there has never been, as far as I can tell, a collection of PRTN documents, and these are these important founding documents in development of packet radio, and there wasn't a place to just go and download them all. So I've been trying to find them all, and which has been a lot of emailing, a lot of doing Freedom of Information Act requests from various government agencies, a lot of emailing to research librarians at various universities, Stanford, University of Hawaii, and trying to find what I can find. And it's starting to come together. And so that's an exciting, I'm excited. It will be a neat thing to have and a great research tool to add to the library.
With respect, I think you're bearing the lead a little bit here.
Okay.
So most amateurs, given our audience here, most amateur radio operators think that packet radio technology originated within amateur radio in the early 1980s.
Yeah.
Not the case. The very first packet radio technology that was for public, now I'm sure the military was doing something similar to this, but it was, all that was secret. But the first public use of packet radio technology was called Aloha Net, and it was actually a precursor of the internet. And
Hmm.
some of the technologies that became, embedded in the internet were pioneered by Aloha Net at the University of Hawaii,
Yes.
and it was literally packet radio. It was packet data communications technology over radio. First time that got done was Aloha Net at the University of Hawaii, and that's been known. But you are uncovering some of the technical documentation that has never been online before.
Hmm.
It's been discussed. We know it exists, but you're the first one to bring it forward and make it available on the internet for us ordinary civilians who are not part of that community to actually be able to read. So kudos, Kay. Good job.
Thank you. Um, yes, some of it is online now, and I have a lot more coming. Dozens and dozens more documents are on their way to me.
Well, see, to me, this is exactly the value of ARDC funding DLARC. Again, I would argue continually, but that's another fight. But because you have developed these techniques and these systems for doing this kind of stuff that us as volunteers and part-timers would never be able to do or anywhere near the efficiency and the results that you're getting. So that's please keep going. Yeah. So
I'm
and
trying.
and 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 kudos to ARDC for stepping up to the plate and funding DLARC again. And so you've said that there's a 2-year horizon. So
Yeah.
we're going to certainly enjoy it for the next 2 years at least.
A part of the packet radio stuff is uh, a amazing trove sent to us by Hank Magnuski. who we've gotten a lot of it digitized and online, and he was in the the packet radio groups early on. He was a mover and shaker of the Pacific Packet Radio Society, and uh, he took all the newsletters. He wrote all the correspondence. He researched and wrote, and he saved everything, and he sent it all to me, and we've got it all digitized, and it is an amazing amount of information. One of this like correspondence. There would literally be like a 2 inch thick. There was just boxes of correspondence, like letters he sent and received about Packet Radio, and some of it was email, some of it was handwritten, and so you'll find things like Hank's correspondence 1985, and it'll just be like hundreds of pages for of interesting reading material to sort out and figure out. And step one is getting it digitized and online. Step two will be for someone else will be to find out what the amazing stuff that is in there. Also in there was some newsletters, including a nice collection of amateur satellite reports, which was published by AMSAT. First issue was published in 1981, and then it started. First, it was Radio Amateur. No, sorry. First, it was Amateur Satellite Report, and then they changed the name to something else. I think I need to. Yeah, I need to fix that. That's wrong. First, it was AMSAT Satellite Report, then it was Amateur Satellite Report. I'm sorry, and so there's just hundreds of newsletters about uh, satellite radio communications, and yeah, so getting at it, and I'm just having fun finding the stuff and getting it plugged in.
Yeah, well, I think the big push in, now that you have all the infrastructure and procedures in place, and you're at this point, DLARC is a well-oiled machine, and you can ingest large quantities of stuff. We really need to start beating the bushes, and I would think an article and articles in QST and others, you're really getting the word out now that you're capable of handling big collections. And speaking of big collections, you have a big collection on your horizon in September. Remember,
I oh
near and dear.
I do, and in September I'm going to be heading up to the Spark Museum, which you hooked me up with them, and they are divesting themselves of some material. And when I say some material, it looked like roomfuls of material. And they said I can go in there and take what I want. So I'm going to go up there right before your show, and box it up and find out what DLARC needs and box it up and get that scanned. So that's a few months away still, but
Yeah.
it's on the
Well,
horizon.
I don't know. Well, it's probably not on the same scale as the Fair Radio project, but you, you,
Yeah.
what did you're you called yourself an away team of one
Right. Yes.
to parachute into,
Well, Fair Radio was there was three of us for that one, but when I went to Colorado for Bob Cooper's stuff, that was just me. Um, yeah, and this is a smaller. This will be a weight team
okay.
of one. I can do this in a day or two. I hope.
So I'm sure
Yeah,
there are other collections like that, lurking in places, universities that, are defunct radio clubs or et cetera. So, yeah.
yeah.
And there are, when I get back from CPAC, uh, there's two boxes of stuff that I'd been waiting to hear whether or not you would still be in this active business.
Right.
So I got to get those indexed and sent off to you.
Yeah. So, and the other thing that I wanted to mention is that DLARC has added um, a complete collection of the Wireless Institute of Australia's amateur radio magazine from 1933 to 2013. And these were scanned years and years ago by VK6UU, Will, and the scans have been available online for a long time at his website and at World Radio History. But the scans that were available were 100 DPI, which are readable, but we could do better. And Will told me that he had higher DPI versions available. He just didn't put them online because just space and bandwidth and whatever. So he got them all to me, and um, that was a process to get them pretty and get them ready to go online. But now they are, and so now we have these these uh, uh, the WIA amateur radio magazines, and higher resolution. They're easier to read. You can see the schematics better. Enjoy the images more. Anyway, so it just WIA was generous in sharing this information, and Will did all this work, um, and I'm thrilled to have added that and just made made that a little bit better. Made that
Great.
available. Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see their the progress of, for example, my first love, packet radio technology, showing up in the pages of WIA's, newsletter magazine, I guess.
Yeah.
Just like you did with 73. I suspect that, in a few years when things hopefully calm down for me, that I can just be digging in and finding, and bookmarking things and then throwing them over to the future packet radio AI bot, and just, say, okay, add this to the collection. Just excellent news, magazines. Because one of the things, and it's already proving there's already benefits to knowing about all this previous technology, because some of those things that were well proven in packet radio, are now influencing the development of IP400.
Hmm.
Um, so, we made a lot of mistakes and we learned a lot of lessons, and, we're not going to repeat mistakes. We're going to make brand new mistakes, in IP400. But we're going to build on the foundations of what we did before, and we're going to need to dig into the real nuts and bolts, because one of the things we're going to do in IP400 is do what's called encapsulation. We're going to be able to transport. We're going to provide compatibility with AX25. All that incredible amount of software out there that works on AX25. We don't want to throw that away, and we don't want to have to force people to reinvent it. So we're going to have a compatibility layer in IP400 for AX25, and it'll be, IP400 will be a superset of AX25, but you won't lose any of the goodness of AX25 when you've got existing networks that you don't want to disturb, or existing applications. So yeah, we have to, we're going to need to draw on some of that really core detailed technology, like in the Tapper Digital Communications Conference proceedings and things, and Tapper newsletter and Packet Radio magazine and all those other things.
Yeah.
So every bit of this is extremely valuable and, going to be useful. And we're on the verge of starting to push state of the art again in amateur radio, that we're certainly going to be doing things with IP400 that are not currently being done in amateur or commercial, or maybe even military. Dare I speak that we're doing things better than anybody else. If we take IP400 to the extreme that we imagine, it's gonna be state of the art communications in VHF UHF. So and I just can't wait, and I can't believe that I'm inside this development process, because it's just wild. So, and we're like I said, we're making mistakes as we go, but we're figuring it out in real time, fixing it. So yeah, and plenty of mistakes were made at Hamvention with me trying to show it off for the very first time. So it's going to be a much more polished thing when you see it, at the ZRDC. It's going to be cool.
I'm looking
So
forward to it.
yeah, can't wait. So I'll have the IP400s with me when I go down to CPAC, but I probably just don't have enough time to get them going, and it's not that impressive for that crowd. But for my buddies and the zero retries folks that are going to be at CPAC, I'll definitely show and tell.
Great.
So, oh
Fun.
well, yep. So I'm looking forward to a productive and fun summer, um, healthier than I have been in several years, and it's just I'm just jazzed. This is going to be a great summer, and God, our summers here in the Pacific Northwest. I forgot how humid Ohio is in the summer. I grew up there and I'd forgotten, mercifully forgotten, and this is heaven compared to that, you know. So anyway, so let's say, wow, this is a long one for
It's a
us.
long one.
Yep.
Best one
So,
yet. This
yep.
has been Store and Forward, your podcast about the past and future of amateur radio. Our address for this podcast is at www.storeandforwardradio.org, where you can find show notes, links to everything that we've talked about, and more. Previous episodes, and that sort of thing. I am K Savitz, K6KJN. I'm the curator of DLARC, the Digital Library of Amateur Radio and Communications, which is your free online ham radio library, which I want you to check out. I just go there, just Google DLARC ham radio, you'll find it, and you will see. I'm sure you will find something interesting and educational. And that's me, Steve.
And I am Steve Stroh, NHGNJ, and I am the editor of Zero Retries newsletter, uh, which is all about technological innovation in amateur radio. And you can find Zero Retries online for free, and 4 years of weekly back issues at www.zero retries.org. And don't forget to look at the top bar of the homepage, and there's links to the conference and various other things that I provide. And it publishes every Friday. I aim for 15:30 Pacific. Sometimes I miss that time, but it almost always goes out on Friday every week. For better, sometimes at considerable personal expense and time. So like getting it all nailed down from Hamvention. That was a lot of fun because I got to kind of mentally relive everything I saw. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot of cool stuff. So 7-3, K, good to see you again,
73
and
Steve.
take care.